Shalom, friends. What a week it's been, and it's only Monday. We've all been watching with horror and dismay as the people of the Republic of Ukraine have faced invasion from their superpower neighbor, Russia. Already since 2014, this fledgling democracy has had to defend itself from similar aggression with the annexation of Crimea, Lugansk, and the Donbas regions. The Jewish people have a long history in this part of the world. We've lived in Ukraine for nearly 1,000 years, and many of us, myself included, can point to family history on the same streets and in the same towns we're currently now seeing under assault. It's painful. Half my mother's family came from Kyiv. The other half came from a small town to the west of Kyiv, near Radomzel, called Rozhever Kolonia. This was not Rozhev proper, of course, itself a tiny town, but its even tinier suburb. That place no longer exists. My people left long ago, around the same time as the Kishinev pogroms in the early 1900s, like many of our families. It's a long and complicated history of which so many of us are part. The survivors of the Chmelnytsky massacres were the soil that gave rise to the rich culture and writing that gave rise to Shalom Aleichem. The same country whose army once hailed a Jewish battalion also saw the horrors of Babi Yar. The modern state that once proclaimed Yiddish as an official state language imprinted on its currency saw 70% of its Jewish population murdered in the Holocaust. And though anti-Semitism is not fully erased from contemporary Ukraine, and despite significant emigration to America and Israel, conditions for the Jews of Ukraine have greatly improved, and much like the nation of Ukraine itself, have actually become something of a beacon of hope. Thousands of Israelis visit on religious pilgrimages in Ukraine every year. Children of Israeli immigrants from Ukraine return before their B'nai Mitzvah for heritage tours to see the places that their ancestors once dwelt. But one need see little more proof that in just 2 generations, the Jew in Ukraine has gone from being a pariah, a minority persecuted in pogroms, to the president of the nation. It's not even 30 years since Ukraine became an independent state once more. In America, we haven't reached that milestone in nearly 250 years. As we watch innocent civilians shelter on subway stations and stream across borders seeking safety, others of that nation are taking up arms to defend their neighbors and their nation. Among the millions of citizens of Ukraine are still 500,000 Jews, half of whom live in that city of Kyiv, now under assault. And as we watch the reports, we also acknowledge that we are in the near approach of the festival of Purim, a time of great happiness for our people. And so it's a significant juxtaposition, our feeling of anxiety with our hope and joy. And yet, the story of Purim is just that, anxiety of a persecuted minority dealing with the designs of the despot. I'm reminded of a few key points taught by Megillat Esther, which we read on Purim during the month of Adar. We all know the basics of the story of Esther and Mordechai. In Shushan, as in Kyiv, a Jewish hero rises to a position of prominence for what in both stories was, in essence, a beauty contest. Esther, literally so. In Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky was a popular writer, comedian, and satirist who rose to fame in a most satirical fashion. He wrote, produced, and starred in a comedy television series called Servant of the People, where an unlikely everyday Ukrainian is unexpectedly elected president of Ukraine. After a viral video filmed by one of his studio students shows him making a rant against government corruption in his country. In an ironic twist, in 2018, a political party named after this television series was registered with the Ministry of Justice. And things got even stranger when life literally imitated art, and Zelensky, who played this protagonist of the series as the president of Ukraine, was actually elected president of Ukraine in 2019, with over 70% of the vote. Nobody would have known that this Jew, Volodymyr Zelensky, would have risen to this moment. And perhaps President Putin thought that as well, that Zelensky's holding of the office was indeed some sort of joke. But the people of Ukraine weren't joking. They saw something in Zelensky's writing of that show. They saw the truth in that rant against corruption, and they believed it. They believed in his message, and they believed in him, perhaps even before Zelensky believed in himself. In chapter 4 of the book of Esther, Mordechai gets word to his cousin of the plot against the Jews, and he tells her, "Esther, do not imagine that you, of all the Jews, will escape with your life just by being in the king's palace." And he continues, "On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, you and your father's house will perish." And he says, "Umi yodea im le'et kezot higiat lamalchut." And who knows, he says, perhaps it is for a moment such as this that you have arrived at this position. The world has witnessed the courage and resolve of President Zelensky, rallying citizens of his own country, but also those of hundreds of other countries, even that of his own foe, to the cause of peace and defense of democracy. We've all been inspired by the bravery of our Jewish brother and pray his quest for peace and freedom prevail. And who knows, perhaps it is for a moment such as this that he has arrived at this position. Purim is also a story of reversals, of v'nahafoch-hu, of things being turned upside down, when unlikely heroes arise, unexpected plot turns happen, evil plans are turned upside down, and villains suffer the very fate they intend for others. The Jews of Shushan were not slaughtered but saved. Haman was indeed elevated higher than Mordechai, but only to swing from his own gallows. Similarly, the Ukrainian nation was not expected to hold out against superior forces of the Russian army, better armed, outnumbered, but they have. Zelensky was expected to flee, but instead has rallied his people, filming himself in Kyiv and inspiring the world to stand up to a tyrant and thug. The fight isn't over, and difficult times may yet lay ahead for the world and for Ukraine. But clearly the designs of the despot are not merely failing, they're starting to turn on him, just as they did in our Purim story. Dignity and democracy may yet prevail. Ribono shel olam, yehi ratzon milfanecha, Master of the world, may it be your will to give our leaders and all leaders of all nations of your world the wisdom to discern what is right, what is best for peace among all peoples, and to work for it at all costs. May it be your will as well, source of mercy, to strengthen those who uphold truth and freedom, to defend all who strive for peace, and help and heal and house those sheltering and fleeing from war and violence everywhere. Kakatuv al yad neviecha lo yisa goy el goy cherev velo yimledu od milchama. As it is written by the hand of your prophet, let nation not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war any more. I wish you peace, and with you, I'm sure, we wish all the people of Ukraine and Russia peace, and let them learn war no more.